Okay, so in the last video we went through Bitcoin and through the processes that it went through and ended up at the first hard fork, which was the BCH hard fork, where Bitcoin Cash came into existence. The original website, going back to Satoshi and going back to the beginning of Bitcoin, the first website that came out was bitcoin.org, and bitcoin.org is what we're looking at here on the screen, and it still exists to this day if you want to get your wallets or buy Bitcoin, what have you. Just a little warning here: if you go to buy Bitcoin on bitcoin.com, you're going to pay more than the current price. So let this come up, and you can see, like right now, if you want to get $300 worth, they say that the BTC price right now is 42,000. 46, right? So if we actually go over and look at the other one, the actual graph, we'll see where we're at here. So right now Bitcoin is running at about 40,700 ish, right? It's going up and down. It's got a little bit of a bull run going, but it's probably going to hit the line and come back down again. But nevertheless, understand that they're charging you 42,000, right? They're adding to what the actual price is on that website. So back over here you can see it's 42,000, right? And so they're charging an extra $2,000 now. Of course they're going to do that because they want the price of BTC to increase, right? And if you purchase large amounts, then you're going to affect the charts over on the other screen that we just looked at. You're going to help bring the price of Bitcoin Core up. So anyways, this is bitcoin.org, and this is the original website. So when BCH came out, what it did is they increased the block size. It went from a 1 megabyte block size that was the original hard code into the Bitcoin protocol, or the Bitcoin blockchain, right? The original code, the original software required a 1 megabyte block size. What Bitcoin Cash did is, because of all the traffic, because of the high transaction fees, because of the congestion and all the other things that were going on at the time, is they decided the best thing to do would be to increase the block size. So they come in and they remove the SegWit signature witness and all that from it, and then they increase the block size to a 8 to 32 megabyte block size. And the idea behind that was to enable more transactions per block. So if you have a bigger block, you can fit more transactions into that block in that same 10-minute window, because every 10 minutes a block is produced. So both BTC and BCH use proof of work consensus, okay? And understand that one of the main things that came out from Bitcoin, right, this blockchain 1.0, was the Satoshi consensus mechanism, which is a proof of work mechanism. You do the work, you create the Bitcoin, you bring Bitcoin into existence, and eventually over time it halves, as we talked about in the last video, and eventually it hits the limit of 21 million Bitcoin, and there will never be another Bitcoin produced ever again. But with the hard fork and the new Bitcoin, which is now Bitcoin Cash, we have a whole nother website. So the Bitcoin Cash website is bch.info, and here you can choose a wallet and get started, do all the stuff, read the white paper, etc. Right? It has all the information that you need for Bitcoin Cash. We've already discussed Bitcoin Cash. The only thing that we haven't mentioned is basically who is the head over it, or basically the main character involved in Bitcoin Cash, and that would be Roger Ver. So let's take a look at him real quickly. So Roger Ver, born this date, early investor in Bitcoin, Bitcoin related startups, and early promoter of Bitcoin. Ver has sometimes been referred to as Bitcoin Jesus. He now primarily promotes Bitcoin Cash, as Ver sees it as fulfilling the intended original purpose of the Bitcoin white paper, first published in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto, in which Nakamoto referred to Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, I've already mentioned this several times, and we're going to come back to that here shortly and talk about this again, because it's important. If we're going to understand which one is the proper Bitcoin today, then we need to understand what this phrase is saying to start with. So you guys can come here. I'll leave the link in the description, but again, he is known as Bitcoin Jesus, right? Which I don't too much care for that terminology there. I believe there's only one Jesus. There's all sorts of people who have the name Jesus, but I believe only in the Son of God and that no one should be referred to as Bitcoin Jesus. Nevertheless, it's just my opinion. It's just the way I see things, so it doesn't mean anything at all. But this is how he is often or sometimes referred to. So it's not my intention to persuade you to BTC, Bitcoin Core, or BCH, Bitcoin Cash, or Bitcoin SV. What I'm trying to do is just to give you information and to help you get started in your research, so that you'll go do your own research and come to your own conclusion and decide for yourself what is the proper Bitcoin if you are interested in investing in Bitcoin. But nevertheless, after BCH came into existence, we had this hard fork, so we have this whole new Bitcoin that comes into existence. Now we have this double spending issue where everyone with a Bitcoin BTC or Bitcoin Core wallet now also has the Bitcoin Cash, and now can dump that onto the market, or they can hold it or do whatever they want with it. But ultimately, however much Bitcoin they have, they now also have Bitcoin Cash. So if you had 1 million Bitcoin in your wallet, you now have 1 million Bitcoin Cash as well. So now if you were just at that moment just switch it over to Bitcoin Core, now you'd have 2 million Bitcoin Core. See, there's a problem there where you have this double spending issue, the very thing that Satoshi Nakamoto was trying to get rid of it. Let's go take a look at the white paper real quickly. So over on the white paper, and again we are going to come back and talk about this right here, but over here on the white paper, if we come down a little bit, we see that the problem, of course, is that the payee can't verify that one of the owners did not double spend the coin. A common solution is to introduce a trusted central authority or mint that checks every transaction for double spending. After each transaction, the coin must be returned to the mint to issue a new coin, and only coins issued directly from the mint are trusted not to be double spent. The problem with this solution is that the fate of the entire money system depends on the company running the mint, with every transaction having to go through them just like a bank. We need a way for a payee to know that the previous owners did not sign any earlier transactions. For our purposes, the earliest transactions is the one that counts. So we don't care about later attempts to double spend. The only way to confirm the absence of a transaction is to be aware of all transactions. In the mint-based model, the mint was aware of all transactions and decided which arrived first. To accomplish this without a trusted party, transaction must be publicly announced, and we need a system for participants to agree on a single history of the order in which they were received. The payee, the one receiving, needs proof that at the time of each transaction, the majority of the nodes agreed it was the first one received. So one of the things that this white paper is addressing is a double spending issue. So the moment that we went into a hard fork, we literally created a double spending issue. It goes against the very thing that that this Satoshi Nakamoto was trying to get rid of. Just keep that in mind as we move forward. We now have a double spending situation in which the very white paper itself was trying to eliminate through using nodes and all this other stuff to verify that a coin hasn't been spent prior and yet is trying to spend it again, right? But in this case, in the case of a hard fork, you now have double the coins. So anyone that had a BTC wallet also now has the equivalent amount of whatever, however amount they had in their BTC wallet. They now have the equivalent amount in BCH and can transact in BCH and switch that over to BTC or do whatever they want with that BCH. So they have literally doubled their pocketbook during that fork process. In other words, it was a money creation system. As soon as you create a fork, you create new money out of thin air. Remember that with the SegWit, the signature witness, right, where they removed the signature out, it was a soft fork. In other words, the normal everyday nodes, everything continued to run and to operate as normal. If you had an original node, it would continue to function. It would simply not be aware. Literally, it is being tricked, okay? Because what's happening is it's not aware of the SegWit operation and whatever the SegWit nodes know, the original nodes have no clue about, but see it as a valid transaction. Therefore, the old nodes can continue to do what they were doing, but if you had a new node that's running the software that has SegWit in it, and it comes across the information, rather than ignoring what is placed at the bottom of the block there and added to the block, it then can act on that block and verify that block and all the other different things that it needs to do. Whereas the regular node doesn't do any of that. It just sees that it is a valid transaction and allows the transaction. Again, it's still legit, but yet it doesn't know about what's going on with the signature witness program. So if we consider everything I just said, then really the Bitcoin core, even though nothing really changed as far as the nodes is concerned, the software itself that runs the blockchain system did change. And so with SegWit and with the Lightning Network layer 2 solutions and all that stuff, but with the with adding SegWit into the code, it changed it from the original BTC. So the original Bitcoin is no longer in existence, neither in BTC nor in BCH. Okay? And if you think about it, any software that you create, whether, okay, let's use the most common example, Windows operating system. Right? When it came out, there was Windows operating system. Then there was Windows 1.0, Windows 1.2, Windows 2.0, Windows 3. Right? You upgrade as you learn, as you discover, as you understand, as the market influences, as things change, hardware changes, programming changes, all these things change, your code changes over time. And so you're never ever under any condition going to have the original Bitcoin protocol. The closest thing that we have to the original Bitcoin protocol is BTC, in the simple concept that, okay, now understand I haven't even got to BSV yet, but between BCH and BSV, BCH, Bitcoin Cash, and BTC, Bitcoin Core, the closest one is still Bitcoin Core, simply because the original nodes continue to operate. Nothing changes as far as the nodes are concerned. Now, if you wanted to upgrade your node to run the SegWit, the signature witness protocol that's been added, you could do that, but you were not required to do that. It was not a requirement. So you could run, you literally would vote whether or not you wanted SegWit or not by whether or not you upgraded your node. If you didn't want it, you kept your node the same. And a lot of people still have the original nodes and haven't changed to the SegWit nodes, even to this day, here in 2022. Okay, so really the original program is still running, but SegWit has been added to or stacked into or put into that original Bitcoin code. So it is not the original Bitcoin, neither is BCH. BCH added a bigger block. Okay, which, is there a problem with that? Well, yes and no. Again, the bigger you go on these block sizes, the more powerful computer is going to require to process those larger blocks. So it eliminates the average man from being able to build a system, a computer, to run that bigger block size, to verify that bigger block size, or to create that new block size, or to create a new Bitcoin. So as the block continues to increase in size, it's going to take more and more powerful computers, and going from $6,000 for a computer to mine, it's going to be $10,000, and then $20,000 computers, and $50,000, you know, as you increase the block size, which then begins a centralization process, because less and less people can participate in governing the blockchain itself, in determining what is verified, what is unverified, what is legitimate, not legitimate, and all these other different things that take place with the miners. But the point I want to make is that neither BTC nor BCH, either one of them, are the original Bitcoin anymore. Okay, the closest thing we have is BTC. Between these two is BTC, because of the fact that the original nodes are still running the original software and nothing has changed there. But for the ones that upgraded to the SegWit version of the protocol and upgraded their nodes to it, those people are no longer running the original Bitcoin software. Again, though, no matter what you do, the protocol, the software that runs that operating system, that runs that blockchain, is going to change over time. It has to. As we learn more, we understand more, we see errors, we see things, and all these other stuff. Even in the original Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto brought out, there were errors in it, there were bugs in it, and these things had to be fixed, even all the way back in the very beginnings. So it did change as time went forward. Okay, so again, just understand you don't have the original Bitcoin in any way, form, or fashion other than in BTC running the original nodes. But understand that those original nodes are being tricked in order to run the SegWit protocol that they added into the code. In other words, the original nodes see this extra information, they check the transaction ID, they verify that the transaction IDs prior, that the unspent transactions are legitimate and everything is there, the money is there and it does exist and is able to be transferred and all that stuff, and it verifies it and it allows it to go through. But when it gets down to the bottom and it sees this extra stuff, it says, okay, I don't know what that is, but everything checks out, everything's legit, everything, the transaction IDs are proper, the hash codes are proper, everything works. So it is what it is, just I don't know what this extra information is. And then the SegWit nodes come in and they say, okay, I know what this information is. It says it's version 0 or version 1 or version whatever, and this is what I'm supposed to do with that information. And then it verifies if the signature itself is correct and all these other different things take place, right? So again, the key here is that the transaction ID is verifiable and that there is coin there and that it's not double spent and all these other things, which the original nodes can do as well as the SegWit nodes. Both of them can do it. The SegWit version node, though, sees extra information and verifies that extra information to make sure everything's legit. BCH, on the other hand, doesn't have any of that, right? They're still running the same code. They have the same history up until the fork in the two systems, the two different chains. They have the same history up until that block in which BCH is created, and then from that point on, no node that is running the Bitcoin Core nodes cannot operate on a Bitcoin Cash chain because it has a much bigger block size, anywhere from 8 to 32 megabyte size block. And again, the reason that they've done this is all the congestion that was going on, and they wanted a way to allow more transactions into a block so that you can process more a lot quicker. And so we end up with BCH. Now, as time goes forward, about a year later, in August of 2018, we have this Bitcoin ABC 0.18.0 that comes into existence and is a fork off of the Bitcoin Cash. So now you have this fork and you have a whole nother Bitcoin called Bitcoin ABC, and now you have everyone that has the Bitcoin Cash wallet now ends up with this Bitcoin ABC thing, and there's other forks that start to take place, and you have all these different forks popping out of Bitcoin Cash, right? Because nobody's in agreement, right? Everyone is fighting over this block size and what should be done and all this other stuff and all these things. Well, all these different forks start popping off of Bitcoin Cash, but eventually all of these fade away except one, which was Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, or BSV. But the whole point of Bitcoin ABC was smart contracts, oracles, transaction ordering, 32 megabyte block sizes, and all these other things. And certain key players there, such as Kelvin Ayre and Craig Wright, didn't believe in all that stuff, and they started to believe that Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin ABC and Bitcoin all these other different Bitcoins that were forking off of Bitcoin Cash were all going in the wrong direction and all going away from this white paper, and going their own direction and doing their own thing. So a couple months later, in November 15th of 2018, Craig Wright and basically creates or forks off of BCH, creating Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. Right? The concept was BCH and all the forks of BCH were all headed away from the white paper and going off and creating something completely and utterly different than what Satoshi had envisioned Bitcoin to be. And so he creates another fork called Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. So Bitcoin Satoshi Vision is over on bitcoinsv.com. I'll leave a link to it as well so you can do your research and read into it. They've done a lot of work, There's programs starting to come up on it. They now have their own on-ramp as far as being able to purchase, because they got kicked off all the exchanges because of a lot of the controversies that Craig Wright created at the beginning of all this. And for those of you that want to know, is Craig Wright Satoshi Nakamoto or not, in my opinion, he is not. However, a lot of what he has to say, this guy is a brilliant guy. He's genius. He's genius level. And he has a deep understanding of blockchain and technology in general. Okay? And I agree with a lot of what he says. I mean, a lot of what he says. But do I believe he's Satoshi Nakamoto? No, I do not. He's had opportunities to absolutely prove that he is, but he's not been able to produce the keys and all these other different things that have come up. Okay? Now, understand that he did file for patents, right? So he has the patent on the Bitcoin white paper. He has the patent on the Bitcoin core code. He has the patent on all these different things, right? But anybody can go to and file at the patent office for a patent if it hasn't already been filed by somebody else. That does not mean that you are the one that actually created it. It just means you were the first one to file, and and he wanted his name, Craig Wright, added to the Satoshi name in the patent, and he filed all that. And then, you know, he went over to Bitcoin Core and said, hey, you need to remove the white paper because I have the patent on it and all these other different things. And it's a big, long story, guys, and you got to do your own research. The patents were, in fact, granted to him, okay? So just understand that that does not mean that he is the actual creator of Bitcoin, okay? But again, you have to do your own research. You have to come to your own conclusions. I am not here to say he is or is not Satoshi Nakamoto. In my opinion, he is not. But that does not mean anything in any way, form, or fashion. It's my opinion. Okay, I'm not here to start an argument. I'm not here to create a fight. Alright? The people that are involved in Bitcoin Satoshi Vision believe, to some degree, and some absolutely believe, that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay? That's fine. That's their belief system. I'm not here to fight against them or to argue with them. If that's what they believe, that's what they believe. The main problem that I have with him being Satoshi Nakamoto, now there's other things that kind of hint at the fact that he's not, but the main thing is that whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is, he went through extreme lengths to make sure that he would never be identified in real life as to who he is. The emails are untraceable to any given individuals. That the emails that everybody can go online and read. We don't know who he is on the Satoshi. On the forums where Satoshi Nakamoto is posting on the forums. It's unverifiable as to who that links back to. The Bitcoin paper doesn't tell us exactly who it is. He went through extreme lengths to make sure that he is never identified in real life who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Okay? But then we get to the year 2016 and Wired and Gizmodo magazine come out and claim that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. Right? So they outed him as being Satoshi Nakamoto. Now remember, Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he is or she is or they are, disappeared in 2011. But did everything in their power to make sure that they would never ever be identified ever under any condition. But after Craig Wright is outed, he comes out and he actually says, yep, I am Satoshi Nakamoto. And it makes absolutely no sense why after 7 years of just being gone, just doing everything in his power to make sure he's never exposed, would then come out and say, yep, it's me, and here's what I meant by all of my white paper, and here's what I meant by everything that, you know, Bitcoin is, and here's what, you know, why would he do that? He went through all that effort, all that length, even if he was outed by some magazine or 10,000 different television media networks or 10,000 different stores or 10,000 billboards or 50 billion whatever. Why would he ever, under any condition, come out and say, yep, it's me? He put too much effort into making sure that the name Satoshi Nakamoto was untraceable to any individual. So why would he come out, even if he is outed, why would this individual or group of individuals come out and say, yes, it was me, or yes, it was us? Number one, they'd have to deal with the military industrial banking powers, and they would most likely lose their life and everything else. So why would they do that? It just makes no sense for Satoshi Nakamoto to come out at a future time and say, really, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto and this is what I meant, and then try to correct where Bitcoin's going. Okay, it just makes no sense. It makes no logical sense for anyone to come out and to make that claim. If there's one thing that we've learned, everything is controlled by narrative, right? And this is a millionaire. Craig Wright is, right? So, I mean, he could easily, pay Wired and Gizmodo to come out with a story to out him, and then turn around and use that to become Satoshi Nakamoto and to gather up a following. But what I'm saying is that it makes no sense for anyone that is Satoshi Nakamoto, whether it's an individual or group, to come out and claim who they are. They did everything in their power to make sure that they would never ever be known in the future in any way, form, or fashion. So to me, even if they were outed, or he or she was outed, they would deny it to their death. No matter what is claimed and no matter what people say, they would never ever under any condition expose themselves. No matter how far Bitcoin has gone away from its original trajectory, no matter how far away from the white paper it's gone, no matter what, they would not expose themselves. Again, this is my own personal opinion. The one thing that we have been taught is that we must think for ourselves, we must do our own research, we must come to the facts, and there are zero absolute facts that are presented to us that Craig Wright is in fact Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody to this day truly knows who it is. There's talking. Craig Wright talks a lot about moving money and causing basically Bitcoin Core to crash and all this stuff as he moves his money because he's Satoshi Nakamoto, all this stuff. Well, none of this has ever happened. There's just a lot of holes in the story is all that I'm saying. But you will have to go do your own research and come to your own conclusion. Not just because, hey, TGA said. No, go do your research and you decide for yourself. Because if you really believe that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, then you need to follow him. Period. If that's what you really genuinely believe. But you need to hear all sides of the story. You need to hear Craig Wright's side. You need to study out all the lawsuits. You need to understand everything that is going on and how he pushes people to come up against him. If I have the patent on Bitcoin Core, I have the patent on the Bitcoin blockchain and the white paper and the software, all this stuff. If you think I'm not Satoshi Nakamoto, prove it. Okay, and he has put that out there, and nobody has proven that he's not Satoshi Nakamoto. But again, you have to go do your research. You have to decide these things for yourself. I'm not here to tell you if he is or is not. All I'm saying is I have very big doubts that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. But that is only my opinion, and that's all it is opinion, period. So you have to do the study, you have to do the research, you have to get to the facts, and you have to decide for yourself. But the whole concept and the reason that BSV comes into existence is because Craig Wright believes that they have moved away from the white paper and the original vision that Satoshi Nakamoto had for Bitcoin. So what they did on this fork, okay, again, when it forks, everybody that had a BCH account, a BCH wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, received Bitcoin SV token. So if you had 1 million Bitcoin Cash, you have 1 million Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. Now you're at a point of triple spending, not double spend, but triple spend. Because if you were a part of the original BTC and split off to BCH, now you have BTC and BCH coins, and then you split from BCH to BSV, now you have BTC, BCH, and BSV coins. You have tripled your money by doing nothing but participating in the forks. Right? Creating money out of thin air. Why? Because the history of Bitcoin Cash is the exact history of Bitcoin Core up until the fork where Bitcoin Cash comes into existence. Bitcoin SV has that exact same history of BTC up until the BCH fork, and then it has the history of BCH all the way up for a year until November 15th of 2018, and then it has this, it comes into existence, BSV comes into existence as its own blockchain with its own rules and its own code that has the history of Bitcoin, BTC, and then BCH, and then from November 15th, 2018 onward, has its own history as Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. So all three of these all have the same history up to a certain point until they come into existence. So BCH has the same history of Bitcoin Core up until BCH comes into existence. BSV has the same history of Bitcoin Core up until BCH came into existence. And then from BCH's existence onward to BSV, BSV has the history of BCH in their blockchain. Now, again, I want you to understand that I believe a lot of what Craig Wright has to say concerning Bitcoin, concerning the different things. About 80% of what he says, I agree with him on it. Okay, but I don't agree with him on the other 10 to 20%. And you have to take your own position. You need to go listen to what he says, understand what he's telling you, understand what his Satoshi Vision is, and all these other different things, and decide for yourself what you agree with him on and what you disagree with him on. But you can't just take what people tell you and just take it as the truth. You can't just take the information that I'm giving you and say, well, that's all the information I need. TGA said all this, so it is. No, you don't do it that way. You do the research. You decide for yourself. Look, you're going to invest in something, right? And if you want to invest in BTC or invest in BCH or invest in BSV, you need to know what you're investing into. And if you don't do the research and your own due diligence, then you're just investing willy-nilly and throwing money into purses with holes in it. You don't know what's going to happen in the future because you don't understand where their vision is. If your vision for Bitcoin lines up with what Bitcoin Core's vision is, then you need to become part of the Bitcoin Core ecosystem and help promote it and help develop it and help participate in it. If your vision lines up with BCH's, Bitcoin Cash's vision, then you need to join that ecosystem and participate in it. And if your vision lines up with the BSV vision, then you need to join that ecosystem and participate and promote it and push it and develop it. Okay? But you have to understand what each of their visions are and decide for yourself what you want to do as far as investing and becoming a part of which ecosystem. Anyway, when Craig Wright created when BSV was forked off of BCH, what happened was they increased the block size to 128 megabytes. So now these are massively large blocks, right? But with massively large blocks, you can do a lot more transactions per block in that same 10-minute period of time. And the cost of that, the transaction fees are so much lower, it's incredibly lower, right? And it doesn't cost you near as much to go out and to do transactions through that BSV blockchain as it does the Bitcoin Core blockchain that only has a 1 megabyte size block with SegWit added to it that makes it 2 to 4 megabytes. But these are 128 times the size of Bitcoin blocks, right? Because Bitcoins are 1 megabyte with an added SegWit section, but the original nodes can run the regular Bitcoin code. So the original code is 1 megabyte, and that's what Bitcoin Core runs on with SegWit added to that code for SegWit nodes. But original nodes run on the 1 megabyte system, period, end of conversation. They don't run on anything else. So Bitcoin SV is a 128 megabyte block, so it's 128 times bigger than the original BTC or the original Bitcoin protocol that was wrote in by Satoshi Nakamoto. Again, Satoshi Nakamoto did say in the forums that it will have to develop and upgrade and all these things would have to happen in order for it to scale over time. Okay? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the block size have to increase and all these things. This is stuff that you need to research and you need to understand for yourself. I cannot do that for you in a video without making about a 26 to 38 hour video. If y'all want me to make a series on on Bitcoin and all the aspects of it and all BTC and BCH and BSV, let me know and I'll do it. But you're going to have to go through a playlist that's going to be about a 35 to 40 hour video. Okay, altogether when you get down through the entire series. You're going to spend an entire week's work hours worth of learning in order to get an understanding. But what I'm saying is you need to do this on your own. You need to go see, what does Craig Wright have to say? What does Roger Ver have to say? All right, what does the Bitcoin core community have to say? And you need to keep an open mind and not just get sucked in by emotion to one or the other, but understand the facts of each and hold them in your mind, all three aspects, and determine what you want to participate. What you want to participate in. Anyway, in July 24th of 2019, we had the first BSV protocol update, and it was called Kazar. The block size cap moved to 2,000 megabytes. And in February of 2020, the protocol update called Genesis came into existence, and that removed the cap altogether, making transaction cap size with the block size infinite theoretically, right? So, and then in other words, the BSV vision, and let me just say something here. Actually, before I say that, the BSV vision is that that really the block size can be unlimited. It could be infinitely large. Right, infinitely is not a good word, but it can be massively large. It could be terabytes, right? It could be 200 terabytes in size, theoretically, if that's what is needed in order to get the amount of transactions through that need to get through. Alright, so now let me say what I want to say. Nobody knows with absolute 100% certainty whether or not Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody knows. Nobody. Not even a single one of the BCF maxis know if he really is. They believe he is. They think he is, based on information that he has and based on different things that he said that has been proven over time to be right and correct, and all these other different things. But nobody is 100% sure that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody is. Nobody on earth is. Because there's no verifiable, 100% provable, factual proof. There's people that are 99.9% sure, right? But nobody is 100% sure, period. Anyway, what I'm saying is that Craig Wright claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto. And he claims that the Silicon Valley and all these other things the governments, Silicon Valley and all these techs came in and basically took over Bitcoin and his vision of what Bitcoin was supposed to be. And so they had to separate off of Bitcoin Core and become a Bitcoin Cash. And Bitcoin Cash went its way and away from the white paper. And so, we needed BSV. And BSV is Satoshi's vision of what Bitcoin was supposed to be, the original concept, the reason he brought it into existence. And since he claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto, then that the vision that he's presenting is Satoshi Nakamoto's vision of what Bitcoin was intended to be over time. But again, nobody is 100% sure that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. So in reality, just in reality, the Satoshi vision that people have, the BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi vision, is honestly, in reality, Craig Wright's vision of what Satoshi Nakamoto conceived with Bitcoin. It can't be any other way. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Nobody is 100% sure. Nobody. Nobody on this earth. Except whoever is Satoshi Nakamoto, if Satoshi Nakamoto is even alive to this day. Therefore, the vision that Craig Wright is giving is Craig Wright's vision. Okay? If he's Satoshi, then it's Satoshi's vision. But if he's not Satoshi, then it's simply Craig Wright's vision. But either way, no matter what, it's Craig Wright's vision of what Bitcoin is supposed to be. Okay, that's the bottom line of it. No matter how you look at it, no matter what angle perspective you come from, in the end, it is Craig Wright's vision of what Bitcoin should be. Okay, I'm just trying to keep it real. I'm not on BSV side, I'm not on BTC side, I'm not on Bitcoin Cash side. I'm not on anybody's side here. I'm just trying to keep it real. Since nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, you have to make the assumption that Craig is Satoshi Nakamoto in order to claim that what Craig's vision is Satoshi Nakamoto's vision. Nobody knows what his vision was because he doesn't exist today. He disappeared in 2011 with no trace of who he was. Okay, so with all of that said, what is BSV's vision? What is their focus? BSV's focus, and what Craig Wright is presenting to the world, is a focus to create a global system for merchants to accept small transactions and low of a cost, as well as replace TCP/IP with their blockchain, making the current internet a sidechain. That's the bottom line of what he is trying to or attempting to do. That's his vision for Bitcoin. Let's go over and let's listen to him himself.
So the Bitcoin blockchain is going to grow. We're going to start building systems in the next few years, starting now that we've scaled, where we do the equivalent of SQL, the equivalent of NoSQL, Cassandra. We're going to map all these different indexed links to data, and we're going to make one universal global database. Not a world computer like people say, a network system, the world. We are going to do one global connected data source. Because when we have one global connected data source, that's when it's atomic. That's when we really know what we have, what we're storing.
Okay guys, we're already up too long into a video, so we're going to cut it here. We're going to have one more video on BTC, on Bitcoin, and layer 1 blockchain. After that, we're going to move into layer 2.0, blockchain 2.0. Not layer, blockchain 2.0. So I apologize for these long videos, but to explain things, it requires a longer video than normal, guys. I apologize for the long ones, but if you want to have an in-depth understanding, you have to think for yourself, and you have to use your own reason and your own logic and do your own research and come to your own conclusions based on the facts that you discover. We'll catch you guys in the next video. God bless each and every single one of you that come along. Peace be with you. You need to get in the Word, stay in the Word, and get the Word in you. It's the best thing that you can possibly do with your life. We'll catch you guys in the next video.